I don't think I have any commercial to offer. Next month there will be a new book that I'll be able to introduce you to, but right now it's not fully finished with the printing. Okay, let's begin. Can you explain why a cremating ceremony is more beneficial to the soul than burial ceremony? What does the Bhagavad Gita recommend to do with the ashes? Well, the last thing is there is nothing in the Gita that gives any recommendation. The usual thing is for the ashes to be put in the Ganges, and very often relatives take the ashes, go all the way to the Ganges. I mean, they may go hundreds, thousands of miles, and they put them in the Ganges. Or they put them in a sacred river. Or they put them in the ocean. Nobody keeps them in an urn at home, however. Now, cremation versus burial. Well, it's very easy to talk about. Often, when a person is very attached to the body, or when the person has had a long, lingering illness, their consciousness is so integrated with the body that they cannot leave the body at the time of death. They're just stuck there, glued into it, so to speak. I one time worked with a woman whose little boy, who was about 5 years old, died after a long illness of some type of incredibly painful disease. I forget what it was. So the body of the little boy was at the funeral home, and another yogi and I thought, well, we'll go and we'll at least be there, sign the visitor's book, so our friend will know she has our sympathy. So we went. Well, the little boy was still in his body. Fortunately, he was asleep, but he was still in the body. And if he was buried, he could awaken in the grave, think he was buried alive. What? Call for help for centuries? It's not impossible. So the two yogis helped him get out of the body and be freed, and on he went. But I've been to cemeteries where I could hear the people calling for help that were down there in the ground. I've written something, I don't think I have kept it in my autobiography, of a time where I went into a cemetery, went into the mausoleum where a man I knew was newly interred, and then went out and basically for the next hour, hour and a half, went around doing what I could to free a very large amount of these earthbound people. So when the body is turned to ashes, there is no astral link even for the person to stay tied to it. Plus, anyway, now it's just a pile of ash. They don't have the attachment to the body they had before, even psychologically. And so they move on. If you go to Manikarnika Ghat in Kashi, in Benares, you will see there's not a single dead person there. It's absolutely clean. It's absolutely purified, because when you die and are cremated there, your soul goes directly into the astral world. There's not a bond left. So I was amazed when I went there, because I've been to crematoriums and they can be very haunted, but there it was completely, perfectly clear. Therefore, cremation is a must if you really want to ensure the welfare of the person who is departed. And burial is is horrible. Actually, it's repulsive and disgusting. They don't just bury the body. They take it, they drain out the blood. The life is in the blood. Remember, it says that in the Bible. So they take it, they put their loved one's blood down in the sewer, pump the whole thing full of formaldehyde and other kinds of chemicals, then put it in a box and stick it in the ground and are so happy that it won't decay. And therefore, that person may, I don't say it's absolute, but that person may therefore not be able to leave for how long? I'm not speaking superstition. This is real stuff. All right. Sorry. That's pretty lengthy. Does Satya Sai Baba recommend the same Soham meditation? Well, if you read my book, let's do show and tell. If you read this book, Soham Yoga, the Yoga of the Self, you'll find a section on Satya Sai Baba and his words about Soham Yoga. And it's good to read this because there's many, many very great people writing about this. So it isn't just my words. All right. Had you already discovered Soham while taking sannyas, or were you given a different mantra? I was not given a so-called Mahavakya to meditate on, which that is not always done. It's common for it to be. But Swami Vidyananda chose not to do that, mostly because he knew my interior practice and it was different. I just saw the lotus of the cross of St. Thomas as the upside down of Mount Kailash. Is that what you intended? No, and it's just an accident of the wood carver who made it. Forgive me, I was planning to look this book up before. Says the Triadic Heart of Shiva. How good a book is this? Sorry, I don't know, but I will try to have the wisdom to not just erase this question, but look it up and email you. What is the best way to help others? By helping yourself, of course, because you're one with all people. And believe me, every time a yogi sits to meditate, he's part of the fabric of the universe. And therefore, his meditation, but not just when he sits to meditate, the japa, which he does, pervades everywhere. Swami Brahmananda, the great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, said this. He said, just as in a lake or a pond, there can be a wave created that will go out to the edges of the pond or the lake and then come back to the center. So he said, every thought we have, now it's not just japa, so we should be careful about our thoughts. Every thought we have is a wave in the universal subtle energy. And he said, especially japa, is what he was very much intent on. When we say the japa, the wave is produced and goes out to the furthest reaches of the manifested universe. It's pretty far. And then comes back and returns to us. So when every single sacred vibration we put out through the recitation of the mantra will ultimately come back and be absorbed in us. So it's a very interesting investment. It's an investment in the universe and an investment in ourselves. Yogananda used to say, change yourself and you'll change thousands. Before that, the great Saint Seraphim of the Russian Orthodox Church used to say, save yourself and thousands around you will be saved. Because you see, we're all at one with each other, even if we don't always like each other. While I see a rough correspondence between the four castes and the four values, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, wouldn't the exclusive pursuit of any one or two of the values lead to karmic imbalance? Well, of course, it would lead to an imbalance, not just a karmic imbalance, a psychological imbalance. All of these things, we have to gain that which is positive and valuable for us. Artha doesn't just mean money or just possessions, but it does mean making something our own. And Kama, they'll say, oh, desire is so bad and so awful. Well, what do you mean? You wake up in the morning, you want to get out of bed. You say, oh, no, that's a desire. I won't get out of bed. Okay? You see, this half-baked Vedanta, as well as half-baked yoga, which is really destructive, so utterly presents a twisted experience, a twisted vision of the actual thing. So, first of all, we're all Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and at certain times we act in one way and in the other. After all, you have a friend, there's a neighbor. Let's say you live where there's snow. The neighbor isn't very well, or the neighbor is very old. It snows. You've got a shovel and you shovel off your sidewalk, and then you go over and shovel off their sidewalk. That's being a Shudra. See, people think, oh, Shudra, that's low. Brahmin, oh, that's high. Nonsense. That's why Krishna says, better is your own dharma done imperfectly than the dharma of another done to perfection. This is all divine. Every caste is divine because it's a human being, and every human being is divine. So the truth is, you pursue all of these simultaneously. And you've got to be an ideal Brahmin, an ideal Kshatriya, an ideal Vaishya, good practical sense, and an ideal Shudra. First of all, just doing grunt work, which we used to talk about. And the other is, again, you do things for the helping of others. You see, unity, there is diversity, but it's all made one in the unity. So when we do these things and split them up and try to say, and which is the best, and what is it I should be doing, we'll always run into a problem, because you see, our problem right now is that we're fragmented. Conflicts in various areas of our mind, conflicts in various aspects of our daily life. After all, how many people detest the work they do, but they need to make a living, and so they go and do it? So, be a yogi, be a yogi, be a yogi. That will unify you, and it will unify your life, which also means that hopefully it will change your life. There are a lot of people who, excuse me, sorry, over and over again in some things I've written, I mentioned the cartoon I saw, which still has meaning, where the drunk was laying in the gutter and the Salvation Army lady was bending over him, and he was saying, do I have to do something? Do I have to go somewhere, or can you save me here? So we have to go somewhere. And it's not a very short journey. All right, fine. I'm really apologizing about this. I can't do anything. Just saying, you don't use dairy products. I remember one time I gave a talk at a yoga retreat and I had to blow my nose. And someone went around claiming, well, he's got mucus. Yes, our Swami Satyananda is laughing because he's the one that heard it, said, yes, imagine eating dairy products. I'm a vegan, but I don't really have to make the sign of the cross when I see a carton of milk. All right. Since it is all a matter of our personal development, why do masters come into the world at all? Well, if they're masters, they come into the world to show people the way to become masters themselves. That's it. We're all intelligent, but we got to go to school to learn. How will we learn? Or we can have private tutors and we can read books and so on. Sorry. That's what we call betterment of ourselves. And when we're ready for real spiritual betterment, for real spiritual ascension, then these masters are there, or in the form of their books, in the form of their lives. Just reading their lives is fantastically instructive. So that's why they come. They don't come to clean us up like we're a mess that needs to be mopped up. They come because our heart says, I want to know the way. Now, those who don't want to know the way, the masters are utterly irrelevant. And for heaven's sakes, don't bother people. If the people don't want, if a person on their own is not looking, then, and they've got their eyes shut, are you going to take you to the movies and say, well, be sure you open your eyes? They don't want to go. It's really easy. There's a story about, excuse me, there was a Boy Scout motto is do a good turn daily. And actually, there were people that thought, okay, every day I should be doing something that is positive, helpful for others. It's a good idea. But there's the story of the Boy Scout meeting that took place, and one of the scouts showed up and his clothes were torn and he had bruises and he had some scratches on his face. And the scoutmaster said, what happened to you? He said, I helped an old lady across the road. Well, the scoutmaster said, well, how'd you end up like that? He said, she didn't want to go across the road. So don't interfere. I've noticed there are selfish people. They don't want to do any good for people. They say, I don't think you should interfere with other people's karma. But when they decide they want to straighten somebody out, they're right there. So anyhow, and there are those, I say, for whom the masters don't come and don't bother, don't give people books and so on. Oh, read this, read this. Nobody gave the book to you. I remember there was a kind, oh yes, when I lived next door to Self-Realization Fellowship. I was an exuberant, let's share, innocent. And so I'd say to somebody, because people wouldn't have come in together, but there wasn't that much space. So people came in and sat at tables, and then we ate, we talked. And I'd say, oh, have you read so-and-so? There'd be a book I found really valuable. No, they'd say, I think those things should be given to you. In other words, I am such a tight fist with God and my own true self that I'm not going to spend money on any book. I'll do it on my clothes. I'll do it on this or that. But I think it should come to me. And that was a very secure attitude because it was never going to come to them. And so they were safe. Nothing was going to come and disturb their little complacent, self-satisfied ignorance. Oh. Okay, fine. Sorry. Let's go on from Swami Nirmalananda's negative ideas. In my yoga practice, I've not yet reached the thoughtless state. So is it really meditation? A stone is thoughtless. Does it gain enlightenment just by sitting on the hillside? A tree has no thoughts. does it become enlightened? The idea that there's a thoughtless state that will lead to enlightenment is idiotic. The only thing that leads to enlightenment is the experience of the self. And if the self didn't have thoughts, you wouldn't have thoughts. Now, it's a deep impulse, it's a movement, but it's there. Oh, I know. They're the kind like, oh, we sit and say nothing, do nothing. You bet. And you'll become nothing, and you'll attain nothing, and your delusion will be all nice and intact for you to take up anytime you want, and it'll be here waiting for you in previous lives. All right, the liars that claim to believe in Sri Ramana Maharshi, oh Bhagavan, they'll say, he said that the name of God was important. He said that meditation with mantra was important. He didn't say, enter the thoughtless state. Yes, you enter a bhava that is beyond the normal bhava. Yes. But you see, it's a great guarantee. Nothing will help you but sadhana. And sadhana is based upon the fundamental reality, which is Shabda, not just the Atma. So you're safe. Oh, yes, I'm a follower of Ramana Maharshi, the pathless path. Okay, entertain yourself. But when these jackasses go hee-haw, you don't have to accept that. And it doesn't matter who they cite for their hee-haw. You use your mind. Look at all the books read. Shankaracharya wrote books. If you're supposed to be in the thoughtless state, why did he write books? For people to read. What are the Vedas for? What's the Bhagavad Gita for? These are all ideas. These are all concepts. Anyway, you get the idea. You get my feeling about it all. But how used to I've been seeing. And the interesting thing, I've known people who are actively persecuted by these fake Ramana people. I'm going to just speak it out. Persecuted for doing japa. Whereas Sri Ramana discusses japa. And he also talked about Soham. In fact, he said, Soham sadhana is the last step. That's what Bhagavan said. Read about it in this wonderful, brilliant book by me. Oh, Srinar Sagadatta. He's in here too. You see? You know what? Don't be a damn fool. If you don't want to be a damn fool, don't associate with damn fools. It's a practical piece of advice. Practical spirituality. How should I go about entering the stream? Entering streams in quotes of Sanatana Dharma, so to speak. What do I need to do to accomplish this? Well, first thing, Sanatana Dharma is just the facts of life. It's like mathematics. So you're there already. You just haven't recognized it. So what you do, of course, is, he said, one of the first things to do, which will not put you in the stream. But you've got to know about the stream. You can't go to the Rio Grande if you don't know the Rio Grande exists. So here we go. 2 books. Oh no, why not beyond books and beyond all intellection? Okay, try. First, I recommend this. It is a work of absolute brilliance. It was collated by a group of teachers of the Banaras Hindu University, which is the #1 place to study Sanatana Dharma. It was printed in 1902. In 1920, this book was put out by the Sri Bharat Mahamandal ashram in Benares. Yogananda lived in this ashram for a while under the direction of Swami Dayananda Saraswati, and the forward to this is by Swami Dayananda. This is magnificent, but this is incredibly easy to read. I don't mean it's childishly simple either. It's just beautiful. It's fantastic English, I must say. And then this goes into super depth, but it is absolutely brilliant. This is a very fast and easy read in a way because it's just marvelous how they construct the sentences. The people weren't like that, but I'm telling you what it says is fantastic. I mean, I am in awe of both books, but I'm really in awe of this one. So learn it first, and then you decide whether you believe it and whether you want to follow it. There are principles of belief and behavior. Without the behavior, the belief is worth nothing. So, Therefore, that's what you do. You read, you learn. You don't have to imitate India. You don't have to imitate Indians. But be sure that you're not mistaking ethnic things for real important spiritual things. People like to do that too. They say, oh, well, that's an ethnic practice, when it's a practice of spiritual principle. So that's what you do. Is there any way? Oh, yes. Then you get and Indians do this. You cannot join our religion. You're supposed to be born into our religion. Every human being has been born for Dharma. You just find Dharma, perhaps a long time after your first birth, but that's what you're going toward. So when they tell you, and act like you need to be born, what kind of elitists are they that they think that you've got to have their ancestry or you can't do anything? See what arrogant fools they are? But you do not study and believe, you study and recognize and intuit this is the truth. And if you read those books, you don't think they're the truth, then fine, forget them and go find something that you find valuable for you. Now, you cannot join Sanatana Dharma because Sanatana Dharma is for every being, not just for people in India. So you've already matriculated, but you got in an ignorant classroom filled with illiterate people, but now you begin to find it. Now, Anandamayi Ma really knew what she was talking about. And so one time when I was there, I said, Ma, people ask me, how do they become Hindu? How do they, in a sense, join? And Ma said, no observance is done. No special observance is needed. She used the word anushtana, for those who know Sanskrit. No anushtana at all is needed. All you have to do is start following it. Because religion is not just principle. It's action shaped by comprehension of the principles. So you just start acting Hindu, and you are, hopefully in your mind. But that's it. Nobody can keep you out, and nobody can bring you in. Now, certain organizations, such as the Arya Samaj, They do have rituals. If a person wants to very formally become a Hindu, it can be done. The Arya Samaj is here in America. You can just do a search on the internet, and it's possible. My beloved friend, Pandit Anandapriya of Baroda, actually, as an Arya Samaji, he brought over 500,000 people in India back into Sanatana Dharma, whose ancestors had been bribed or bullied or deceived away from Hinduism into these various ideas. And also those that everybody else said, oh, you're an outcast, and sorry, you're just a Shudra, or you're not even a Shudra, and don't come into my house and don't come into my temple. There are people in you like that. Panditji said, no, the self is a self. And he did it. He was a holy, holy man, not just a spiritual social worker. It was wonderful. So if you want to formally do so, I recommend the Arya Samaj. I don't say they're the only people, but they're the ones who've been around the longest. And I've always greatly enjoyed encountering them and going to their centers in India. All right. So that's all. You don't have to do, you have to be. You have to be a Hindu. In one sense, you don't become a Hindu because everybody is a Hindu by nature. Am I saying all other religions are violations of your nature? Yes, I am. But I'm not saying don't belong. I'm not saying quit them, but understand, why do you go to school? To get out of school. So some people need to have a religion to ultimately grow beyond it. And then maybe grow beyond another religion and another. It's all growth and evolution, and it's up to you, and it's in your hands, not any great spiritual authority. No one who is genuine will try to tell you, do this, do that, don't do this. Maybe I'm doing that or that. Anyway, see, that was what was very interesting. With Ananda, my mom was very interesting. You could ask her, well, Mom, what should be done? And she'd say, oh, she would say something like, but if you say, Ma, truly, truly, then boom, she would tell you. And then it was a good idea to do what she told you. I speak from experience. Would a virgin birth be against natural laws? Well, if it's, I'm thinking of the people, these atheists that were prevailing in Europe at one time, especially around the turn of the 20th century and around World War I time. And they said a miracle is a transgression of the law of nature. Therefore, if a miracle's worked, it's a criminal act. Now, don't you love that? But they were pulling that. Those of you who know about the apparitions of the Virgin Mary at Fatima, this kind of nonsense was being put out by the atheists of Portugal at that time. And that's one of the reasons they so horribly persecuted those 3 children who saw the Virgin Mary, was they were going against nature. But understand, if you look at it, you'll find those people hate morality, and that's against nature too. Yes, indeed. So you think anything can happen that doesn't somewhere have a natural law behind it? How would it happen? That's like saying, could you make a clay sculpture out of clay, but it not be clay? So you are in control. You are in the driver's seat. This whole thing here around us is for you to utilize for your betterment or your destruction if you're so minded. So it's a pointless thing. In Hindu scriptures, it is described of great sages who, when they wanted to have children, they simply sat with their wife in meditation, and there was a union of the auras, and a soul came in, and the wife was pregnant. You see? Even sexual relations has a metaphysical side to it. It puts out a light, and souls wanting to incarnate come to the light, but they can only enter if the vibrations of both husband and wife are on their wavelength. That's why you can look at people's children and know what they truly are like inside. If they're brats, if the children are brats, but they somehow have a very pious look, they're not pious. The brats like their children. There are a lot of people who grieve about, oh, my child is so bad. Well, you're bad. That's why your child's bad or went bad. But nobody wants to take responsibility for anything, do they? But so it is. There is such a thing where people have been meditating and suddenly here came this light. It isn't just the Virgin Mary. And it happened. There are accounts of this in India. So again, if it was really against the natural law, as I say, it couldn't happen. Did you ever know about snow falling upward? No. Did you ever hear of dry water? No. And so there won't be a birth if the laws aren't used. But see, there are higher laws in this matter. There are people that walk over water. Do you believe people can walk on water? Some great yogis? Well, that's against natural laws. There are great yogis that know how to rejuvenate themselves continually, so they live to be centuries old, but they look very young and very vigorous. I've seen motion pictures of one in India. So there is nothing unnatural. It couldn't exist. That includes suicide. Well, it's natural law. You apply it, you kill yourself, you're gone. Yes. A rapist is following natural laws on the way, but it's not the way to do it, and it creates terrible karma, but yet it is so. So believe me, nothing can happen. That is, again, what do we mean by natural? The only thing that's natural is God. In the beginning, God. There was just God. There was no universe. There were no solar systems. There was no earth. There was no human race. There was no you. But did the so-called natural condition prevail? No, because the natural condition was both manifestation and non-manifestation in very orderly and exact cycles. Okay, I'm sort of pounding away on that, perhaps too much. Okay, fine. See, I love to talk about these things. I hope it's not too tiresome. Why is it considered unfortunate to die in a state of unconsciousness? It is fortunate to die in a state of consciousness. So naturally we say, well, if it's fortunate, then it's unfortunate to do that. Well, in a way it is. For a yogi, certainly, very much should be considered. Most people are unconscious anyway. They don't pay attention to God. They don't have any sense of the existence of God or their own immortal self. So frankly, it's no great problem, is it? But for the yogi, you want to have the sadhana practice, the sadhana process going on even at the time of death. And when you do that, you see, it says very clearly in the Gita, what you think of most in your life, you will think of most at the time of death, and that will determine where you go in the other world. Not the idea, just don't go to hell, go to heaven. No, I don't mean that. So you see, it's very practical. You have to learn how to die in order to die correctly. What do I mean by that? Meditation is a process that should be happening when you leave the body. Don't worry, it won't kill you. It won't make you go before you should. But that's it. Just like Katie Clark, bless her heart, an old friend of mine in her 80s when I was living in California just before going to India. And she told me about how there was a young girl just in her 20s who'd become a nun, and she got tuberculosis. And I hate to say this happened, but it really happened. The convent put her out because they, one, didn't want to give TB. Two, they didn't want to look after her and spend the money on her care. That's a horrible idea, but there have been monastic foundations like that. So they just were going to put her out. So the Clark family took her in. They gave her a bedroom in a house of their own, looked after her. The doctor came to see her regularly, showed the dear sister love. Jesus said, as you've done to the least, you've done to me. So if she had been the least, they were looking after Christ himself. And that's good karma. So the doctor came to see her one day. The whole family saw she was having real trouble breathing. And he came in and he said, well, how are you doing, sister? And she looked at him in amazement and said, why, doctor, don't you see? There is the Lord. He's come for me. Left her body like that. Jesus came for her. I knew a woman, this happened. She was my Aunt Faye's dearest friend. And my aunt moved away downstate in Illinois and didn't see her, wrote to her son. And she just really wanted to see her so much. And so she told my uncle, look, I'm going to find another friend and we're going to drive up and see her. So they went there, went to the house, rang the doorbell, and this one, and Tony's mother came to the door and they said, well, we want to see Tony. She said, oh, come in. She said, Tony, just a short time before, died. Of course, they were shot. And she told, I forget what illness she had, but she was in the hospital. But she said, Tony lay there always praying the rosary. See, this is, we have, japamalas, and there's the rosary, way to pray. And so Tony was lying there in the bed and dying, yes, indeed, and always praying the rosary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. It says in the Gita, what you think of most in life, you'll think of at the time of death. So this is what she did. And she said, I was sitting there with her, and Tony was praying, or silently. And she said, Tony sat up. She began to smile, and she put her hands together and said, oh, Jesus. Jesus himself came for Tony and took her over into the other world. What you sow, you reap. And what you don't sow, you don't reap. That's a fact. Therefore, to the yogi, it's fortunate. But Sri Ramakrishna said, I've seen prostitutes dying fully consciousness unto their end with their feet even in the Ganges River. So the idea is, before death, be sure. Be sure that everything is in right order. But that's why it's considered unfortunate. So a person cannot speak, cannot say this in the unconscious state. Therefore, it's good. But if someone dies in unconsciousness, they're not going to go to hell. It won't be terrible. Anyway, if you're a yogi and you're alive, you can come. It happened to me one time. I came in and I saw someone lying there. And so a very dear friend of mine unconscious. And so I asked her, do you want me to help you get out of this body? And she said, no, I won't need it. And it was right, because she recovered. But I mean, mentally, she said, and we were talking, yes, we were, in the subtle bodies, but so it was. The thing is, it's unfortunate to live without being really conscious. And you're not really conscious if you're not doing japa. I can tell you. And if you remember that through your life, you'll remember it at death, even if you are unconscious. Unconscious means you're not aware of out here, but you'll be aware in there. So they used to say, among the Protestants, are you ready to meet the Lord? You'll be ready if you're remembering the highest, your own self. Therefore, Soham, I am that, which is not just a mantra, it's a bhava. It's a state of consciousness, a state of real wisdom and knowledge. So die in Soham, and which is your own true state anyway. And then beyond here, you can be immersed in Soham. Then go to a tapaloka, the world where people sit and meditate and they practice sadhana. So go and meditate, attain realization, and go on to the infinite. It can be done. All right. Sorry. Where are we? Oh. What is the value of holy company? You see, everything is vibration, and there's what we call sympathetic vibration. For example, you can take a tuning fork and you strike it, and you could take something made of very fragile glass, and it will go, and you put it right up to the glass, or maybe touch one end of the glass, and the glass will start to put out that vibration. In other words, you see, the truth is, just as, people in a closed room, or if they're breathing, the air each other's breathing. So when people are together, their auras ultimately coalesce into an overreaching, subtle atmosphere. Doesn't mean that all of them goes and mixes with everybody, but there is a unification takes place. Therefore, if you're in a company of people who are really intent on the Sat, not just religious, and your intent, you will strengthen each other. I found when I was just a child that if I was with a couple of cousins of mine, and we want to run somewhere fast for some reason, I'd say, let me touch your hands. And Lenny on one side, Gary on the other, and I just put my forefinger on their hands, and they were really fast runners, and I could run as fast as they did. There's an example of satsang, actually. So you see, when you enter into a group of people who are putting their minds up, really doing it, not just wanting to, then it'll be easier for you to do so. However, if you're there and you're really just thinking about that tire that needs to be repaired, well, it doesn't matter if you're sitting with avatars. You're just going to have tire consciousness. And that's the way it will go. So the inner process has got to go on. And since God is everywhere, you'll always be in satsang. You'll have the highest satsang there is. That's it. So aham, I am that. So aham. But it's good to associate with people who are really that. I realized that when I became a yogi. I thought, here I am in brain dead central Illinois. And no one has this aspiration. Oh, they want to go to heaven, and they will go to church and be, at least religious. And I'm just one person. How am I going to manage? God was merciful, but I realized that. So I realized I've got to get out of here. So I got out. And then I went to where there were yogis. And I lived next door to the Self-Realization Fellowship Center. And 3 times a week, actually 4 times a week, we had gatherings. So I went and sat with all these people around me. They had the same idea. And being just across the alleyway from it, the vibrations I always felt, because Yogananda's vibrations were powerfully present there. And then I'd go in and into the cafe, was there, I'd eat there. And finally, I started skipping school. It was really a fun thing to do. And I went and I worked in the kitchen, and I cut up vegetables and did all this kind of stuff to help. Then, with that positive karma, I was able to go to the land of satsanga, to India. Indeed. Does meditation affect dreams? No. Meditation affects if it's real meditation, not just saying Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Narayana. No. Real meditation, in other words, Soham yoga. It affects every level of your being. So it will not just affect your dreams, it's going to affect your waking state, which is far more important than affecting the dreams. Because this is where you sow so much karmic seeds. So meditation affects everything. It affects your health. Quite seriously. That means, of course, sadhana supported by yama and niyama. Look them up, follow them, especially ahimsa. No injury to any living being, which means you don't kill them, fry them, boil them, or bake them, and eat them. This body is the only body you should be having. So you don't eat dead bodies, and you don't drink dead lymph that's meant for a calf, which is not at all the diet you need. So milk is bad for you. It is, and it also violates ahimsa, because it's not normal for a poor cow to constantly lactate and constantly lactate and constantly lactate. And the milking stimulates the poor body to make more milk, and the poor cow is a slave that's living a passive vampiristic existence in it. Humans are the vampires. That milk was just meant for one calf. And when the calf didn't need it, then by the divine law, she didn't give milk anymore. So that's the truth also. The dairy industry is a cruel industry, an evil and exploitive industry. Okay, don't worry, we're coming to the end. All right. Can you recommend a Gita translation or commentary that I could purchase? Well, mine, called the Bhagavad Gita for Awakening, isn't bad. You know, there's no room for silly modesty. It's pretty good and pretty clear. I don't remember of any particular commentary I very cared much for. Yogananda wrote a commentary, and it was excellent, and it is printed. It's called God Talks to Arjuna. The problem is that it's so over-edited by pompous people with a 19th century English style that it's not very pleasant to read. It's slogs. But the ideas, hopefully, are real. But I'll tell you, Self-Realization Fellowship has no qualms whatsoever in distorting and altering what Yogananda said and wrote. That happens to be the truth. So, but God tells us Arjuna is good. The translation, it's very good, is by Swami Prabhavananda. It's simply called The Song of God, the Bhagavad Gita. Somewhere I've got a copy, but I didn't think to keep it here to show, and I don't see it. Of course, there's always this, the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, by some person that I've heard a bit about. So that's not bad either. So there we are. Plus, also on the internet, there are talks on the Gita that I gave. That if you can endure any more of me, you might look into. Just what is a master? Yes. Let me tell you something. A master isn't a lord of somebody else. Oh, master. Oh, dear master. Oh, the masters of the Himalayas. Such a word isn't even used in India. That's for good old Western control, good old artificial control. I'll get me a guru, and then the guru will make me what I don't even really want to be. So, what's a guru? Guru means literally lifter from the darkness. Oh, your first grade teacher was one of your early gurus. You couldn't read, and the teacher taught you how to read. You didn't know how to add, subtract. First grade teacher taught you how. That's a guru too. And in India, they use this term. I mean, I've known people that studied music, and they referred to their music teacher as their guru. So basically, a guru is anyone who dispels your unknowing, let's not say ignorance, because it has a negative context, and teaches and you learn from. So then a spiritual person, a spiritual master does not enlighten you. Oh, yes. Oh, you get the Shakti pot. Just scrambles your brains. I've known lots of people have had it, but it's kind of entertaining, and it's a lot better than just sitting home reading a comic book. So, ooh, my, the Shakti. Have you had the Shakti? You need to know yourself. That's the only thing you need. And a real teacher tells you not how karma works, the kind of things I'm giving you. Acharya gives this to you. But a real guru gives you, this is the way to go to God. And then you don't hang around them all the rest of your life. Oh, I always go every day. I give Guruji flowers. Oh, I have a pranam. At least on Guru Purnima, I go, why? Why? When you learned what you needed in school, you left. There were insecure people who still go back to class reunions, but you hopefully and I aren't that kind. No, I'm not that kind. So you're set free. Yeah. When I sit down and do mathematics, I would say, oh, Miss Engelhardt is one of the meanest old women I ever knew. Oh, it's I all owe it to Miss Engelhardt. I could do nothing without her. This is all her grace. Grace, that spiteful, awful old woman. So anybody who is a soul taker, as the Bible said, wants to make cattle out of you and is the big guru, well, of course, they'll try to keep you dependent forever. But the real ones say, Here's how you do it. And that's it. Read. I do recommend a book. Which of course I don't see here. Light of Soham. Light of Soham. The life of Sri Gajanana Maharaj. And people came to him. They said, I want to know the way. He taught them the way. He said, that's it. You don't even need me anymore. You do need to practice. So go and practice. And that was the end. Now, he didn't prohibit people. Some people saw him frequently. But he told them, you don't need to. You know. And those who applied, they became something themselves. And those who didn't became nothing but little pygmies say, oh, I'm lucky to have such a guru. You may be lucky to have such a guru, but he's not lucky to have such a dud as a disciple. Apply. And that's all you need. When a blind person came to Jesus or has come to other great masters who can dispel blindness, I've seen the blind healed myself. I've seen the lame walk. Well, once you've gotten your sight, you've got your sight. You don't keep hanging around. Then you go out and you look and see what's there. Or if you couldn't walk now, you get out and you go on your own. So a real guru does that. And also a real guru says, and keep it quiet. Gajanana Maharaj said, you don't let a person even know that you know how to meditate. Anyway, the book is good. Light of Soham. And then the inspired wisdom of Sri Gajanana Maharaj, which are all of his recorded teachings with a commentary by my humble self. Yes, you had to forget me. Yes. I've seen some yogis really try humble little me. It was funny. I found it interesting. That's one nice thing. Look cheerfully at something. And if you can get a good laugh out of it, do. All right. And now we've come to the end. Therefore, I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your endurance. That too can be a test. So then, until next month, that will be it. And so we will say, Om Tat Sat Parmarpana Mastu. May it be offered to God.